it's connecting to Facebook. Give it a second. You can hear me fine?
I can hear you fine. Everything is
Okay.
shared.
All right. So here we go. Abraham Sosa, I want you to introduce yourself.
Okay. As you said, my name is Abraham. That's my government name, Abraham Sosa.
Your
Everybody,
your government name. That's funny.
my government, yeah. But everybody basically knows me as SwingDivino. So, but my name is Abraham Sosa. Here from New York, Harlem, New York. And SwingDivino is my musical name, if you want to call it.
Okay, it's your musical name. All right.
Blessed to be here.
So well, first of all, hi. It's been a while since we actually seen each other since COVID and
Exactly.
everything.
I think last time
It's,
I saw you was that thing your church did over in Far Rockaway was the last time that I physically
oh,
shook hands with you.
that was wow,
Two
that
years
was
ago, 3 years ago.
September of 2019.
Yes, sir. That was
Yeah,
the last time we shook
yeah,
hands
yeah.
physically.
Wow. I mean, we've been talking on the phone. We always call each other back and forth.
Right, right, right.
Um, I do want to thank you for taking the time to be on the show.
Amen. My
Um,
pleasure was mine.
as usual, we go over some history. So I may ask you some
Okay.
questions. So let's start. Let's go way back when
Oh, way back.
way back when you
History
had the
lesson.
big fro, and the bell bottoms and the platform shoes. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
But back,
The
back in
fro.
the
We had the
day,
fro.
back, when you used to let the fro grow. But I'm
There
saying,
you go.
how did this whole Swing Divino music start? Even before Swing Divino ever became like a thought in your mind,
Mhm.
what was the beginning of Abraham Sauce? I mean, me and you both share some type of history where,
Right,
we stepped away from church. We grew up in church, but we stepped
right.
away from church. So take me there. Like,
Sure.
go ahead.
As you said, I come from a household of six other siblings. There's seven of us. My family, they're all musical. My brothers play. My sisters all sing. And we grew up in church. We grew up in church where during the great era of Pentecostal, what we call AKA rajatabla. Okay,
Right, 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 right.
that's a Spanish term for very very strict.
Oh
That's all I
yeah.
can say. So, but I grew
Uh-huh.
up in that era. So we had to go to church.
Where was your church? Bronx,
My
Manhattan?
church was in Manhattan. I'm from Harlem.
Okay.
Shout out to Harlem.
Hmm.
And our church is in Harlem. My home church, I consider it my home church. It's still there in Harlem.
Okay.
So we went to church. That was the era when we went to church Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. Tuesday you have meetings. Wednesday you have practice.
There
Thursday
was
you have
always
prayer.
something going
There
on.
was
Yeah.
always something going on.
Hmm.
And then Saturdays when we had retiro. So yeah, we grew up in that era. And then at that time it was a very tough Harlem at that time in the 70s, 80s, which is the era I'm talking
Were you
about.
part of a youth society back then, or did you leave
Yeah, yeah,
church
yeah.
already?
No, I was very active in the church because I play drums. So
Okay.
I was involved with the church from a musical standpoint, at least as a drummer during that time when I was 15, 16, 17. I was drumming. I also belonged to a group at that time in those days in the 80s. They were in tracks. So singers didn't do concerts in church with tracks. Every concert
Hmm.
you went to, as you know, was you really enjoyed the concert because it was
All live
live
music.
bands.
Yeah.
You
Hmm.
know, so I'm from the era of when Mal de Galilea had Galilea Sound, Carmen
Hmm.
Sanabria.
Right. Right.
We belong to Songs of Life,
Okay.
which was a band for many years. You know, you had Eco Celeste in Brooklyn,
Hmm.
Leviticos in Brooklyn.
Right.
The Bronx Sounds of Praise, of Joy. We there was so many bands. So I'm from that era. So
Right.
yeah, I was playing during that time. I also belonged to that band for about 10 years. But I reached a point at about 18 where it was just very strict, and there was just a lot of stuff that was going on.
Hmm.
I was in and out of disciplinas. For those who don't understand what that is, that's when in a
They put you
church
in discipline.
you get in trouble.
Get in
So
trouble. You have
I
to
was
sit
in it. I
down for a
was
certain period of time. Right.
Yeah. So I was. Let's just say I had an easy pass every time to the to the. So it was very tough, and with the music, it was such a battle because I enjoyed playing in church, but once I started playing outside of the church and getting paid, that opened up like my eyes to to something that I never knew, and I thought I could do both. So what ended up happening is for a couple of years, I was playing outside, and then on Sundays I was playing in church. So
Yeah. You
Saturday
had
night,
one foot in and one foot out,
so Saturday
as they
Saturday
say.
night,
Uh,
Saturday night I would be playing wherever it was I was playing, and at that time I didn't start off on drums. I started with percussion, so I was playing congas, timbales, and stuff. And so I would play Saturday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and then Sunday I was in church playing. And then one of the deacons found out and told the pastor, and
oh
and my
boy.
so my pastor called me in the meeting. But
Uh,
I'm always grateful for my pastor, Reverend Henry Mercado of the
uh-huh.
church,
Uh-huh.
Encuentro con Dios, the Meeting with God Church, because he always knew how to talk to me. We grew up, me and my siblings, we grew up without our dad, so it was very tough. We really didn't have a father figure type. Our mother was very strong Latina woman. You know how it is, but you still
Hmm.
didn't have
Hmm.
that father figure. And he came to me. He didn't scream at me. I knew I was in trouble, but I always remember that with so much love. He told me, "Look, you're gonna have to make a decision. You're either gonna play in church or play outside, but you're not gonna be able to do both here." You know. And I told him, I remember being very honest. I said, "Look, the guys outside are paying me, and that was my excuse or my reasoning at that young age." And I
Hmm.
told him, respectfully, I'm going to play outside. And he said, "Okay, um, that's your decision, but the church is always open, when you're ready to commit yourself completely, you know." And that's when I started my years, playing out. And that's when as we were saying, backslid and was involved in that world, which brought in a lot of other stuff, from the time I was 18 to about 2000, to about the time I hit 30 something, almost in my 40s, when I decided to commit myself fully uh, to playing for God and not for the secular world.
Having a little connection problem here. Hold on a second.
Not a problem.
Sometimes in the Rockaways over here, the
Yeah, that's the Rockaways.
it's the Rockaways. Sorry, there's nothing I could do about that. But all right, let's see here. All right, can you see me?
I can see you.
All right, okay. So let's keep going. So as you were saying,
So we skipped over and we landed over where years later, many years later, I
mhm,
decided to really commit myself to playing for God. Prior to that, you know, I think you had K1 here. You was interviewing him, and there was something that he said that really resonated with kind of like what was happening to me. I believe he said something like there was always a line, and every time he got close to crossing that line, he would remember. So mine was something similar, not exactly like that, because I actually crossed the line. But when I did, I would always, there was always the fear of God was always still in me that had been implanted, since I was, 4 or 5 years old. So even though I had made that decision to take that road, the fear of God was still there, and I knew I was doing wrong. And
Now,
like,
when you was out there doing, these playing
mhm.
secular places, did you have any professional music training, or you just, you know, you played according to what you knew from what you learned in church? That.
Well, what ends up happening is, uh, well, it was different because, when I was playing second, I was playing congas and timbales, which I wasn't doing in church. Like I said,
Mm,
at that era, at that time, church
mm,
was drums, guitar, and piano. There was no Latin. It wasn't until years later when Galilea Sound started incorporating congas, and you started
mm,
seeing
mm.
congas pop up in church and all that.
Right, right, right.
But but when I did play out and I was playing congas, I didn't have a professional trainer, but the ambiente, that lifestyle did teach me, because as when you go to places, you run into musicians, you run into certain people, and
Plus
I
you
always
playing, plus you playing every week, every week, every week,
yeah, I was playing
Plus.
it. Yeah, yeah. And what would happen is I would run into a conguero who had more experience than me, and he would tell me, "Look, use your left hand para el masacote, do this, do that." I would run into. So I was always getting advice, and I was, one thing I always had was I was always humble in learning.
Mm,
So people always gyrated to me to tell me, "Look, do it like this, do it like that." And after you spend a whole bunch of years, doing that, you end up getting it at some point. You end up
yeah, yeah.
becoming, and that's what actually
So,
happened. So
so
I
right
I
now,
learned from the street.
right now, how many instruments do you play or
Right
know how
now,
to play?
I play drums. So I play all the percussion instruments. I play drums, conga, timbales, bongo, guira, tambora. I mean, I do most of my own recordings here in this little studio you see here.
Yeah.
So I play percussion, and then I play piano and I play bass, all self-taught. Just when you play congas and you're watching the timbalero next to you for so many years, you know what's gonna happen?
You
You're gonna
pick
end
it
up
up.
learning some. You pick it up. And when I play drums, the bass player is always the guy that's with the drummer.
I
And
I
before you know it,
I
yeah,
I play congas and bongos for many
right, right,
years,
right, right.
but and I also sing and stuff, but I never really got attracted to timbales. I mean, I like the way they sound and everything like that. And a friend of
Yeah.
mine, Benny Torres, who's the church drummer from many years ago, my one of my best friends,
Hmm.
he always was like, man, you should, the way you play the bongos, you should play the timbal and this and that. And I tried it for a little bit, but for some reason, I
You know
just
what it
couldn't
is?
get used to the feel of the sticks.
That's what I was about to tell you.
I had to hit it with my hand, so I ended up I played for a couple of things, and I ended up playing one stick in one hand and still hitting the timbal with my
Yeah.
fingers, like and and
That's
and, and a timbalero said, "Nah, man, that's not what you that's
yeah.
not the way you do
Well,
it."
I was gonna tell you that it's easier for a drummer to become a timbalero because we're already playing with sticks. So that's why for me, the transition to timbales was nothing because I'm grabbing two sticks, which I did when I played drums. So
Right, right.
that transition wasn't hard. The same thing with the bass. It wasn't hard to transition from a drummer to a
Well,
bass player.
drums and bass are like tied
Very
together, like
similar.
left and right shoe.
Exactly. Yep,
Right,
yep.
right.
So, but for
So,
the glory of God, I played all those with the exception of brass. I don't play any instrument where you have to use your lungs. I don't believe in that.
okay. Uh, so what was like? I asked K1. I asked you too. I've asked Chris Van Dunn. I've asked Solo. I've asked a couple of people that's been on here. What was the catalyst that brought you either back to church or made you like, you know what? I gotta straighten out my life. I gotta do whatever. There had to be something. There had to be a point in your
Okay.
life.
The
What?
point was
When
very
did that
simple.
happen?
The point was one summer I was playing at a nightclub in Brooklyn. You might know the area because it's probably an area that you hung out.
No
But
comment. But go ahead.
okay, I'm gonna tell you, I was playing at Liberty Avenue,
Okay.
Okay, at a
Ci-
sports
we
bar.
call that city line, but go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, it
Uh-huh.
was on Liberty. It was on Liberty Avenue at a sports bar that had pool tables and all that. And what they did apparently was at night, all of that transformed into a club or whatever. And I was already having issues because my problem was I will always promise God and say this is the last time I'm going to play out. I'm going to go back, and I never did. Every time I would say that on Saturday, on Sunday, Monday or Tuesday, a director will call me, "Hey, Papi, I need you to next Thursday." I will go, "How much?" "Okay, let's go." Forgetting that I had already told God I wouldn't do it anymore because there
Wow.
was a lot of stuff that was going on. You know, you come home late. It affects, it affects your life, your marriage. It
Hmm.
affects
Hmm.
everything. You know, you come in at 2, 3 in the morning. You know, and I'm married to a Puerto Rican woman, so you understand.
Yeah.
But but
Go
again,
ahead.
um, so that night I was playing on Liberty Avenue. That place was a sports bar, and I remember I was playing, and as I was playing, I looked at the guy that was playing next to me. I was playing timbales that day. I looked at the conguero. When I looked back at the crowd, as you normally do, you're playing, you're looking at the crowd. Normally, what you see is when people dancing, you know, and that's what kind of honestly speaking, motivates you. You're playing and you're like everybody's having fun. But when I looked at the dance floor was on fire.
Oh
Everybody
wow.
was that everybody was dancing, and there were flames around everybody. So of course, I'm shaking my head like, wait a minute. I know I didn't do anything. I didn't take any. I had a couple of drinks, but so I look at my boy who's playing congas next to me, and I go like this to him, but this is in the middle of the song. You can't
Okay.
stop and talk to.
Right.
So
Right.
we're in the middle of the song, and I'm looking at
Kind
him,
of trying to signal with your eyes and whatever, right?
and I'm kind of trying to signal him to look at the crowd.
Uh
So he
huh.
looks at the crowd, then he looks back at me, and he's playing congas, and he's looking at the crowd, he's looking back at me, and he's like going like this, like what's wrong with me? And I'm like you don't see what's going on, like these people, like the whole thing
uh,
is. So then when I look back, it was okay. So that happened. I remember we played a set, and I remember we took a break, and the DJ
mm,
played, and then we were gonna come back on like around 2 in the morning, whatever it was.
uh-huh.
So I'm telling him at the bar, I'm saying to him, bro, it looked like people were, so he starts telling me, yo, whatever you took, let me get some of that, man. That's some good stuff you took. and I didn't, and I'm looking at him. I said, I didn't take anything. He goes, if you see flames, you must have took something. I was like, no, no. So we went back on the stage. We started playing again. Everything was good after the first song, and I was like, okay, I'm not going crazy. Thank God. It must have been like the lighting or whatever. And
Mm.
like in the second song, boom, again the same thing. People were dancing and they were surrounded by flame. And the only thing that I could think of at that moment, I'm not those kind of people that say God spoke to you and like that. If it doesn't happen like that, but whatever it was that was put into my head was the only thing I remember was hearing something saying, "You're taking them to hell because you're playing for the devil, and you're playing and you're taking them to hell." And it gave me such a like, man, this is my fault kind of thing. So of course,
A
after I finished
real,
playing,
real, real bad guilt trip, right? Okay.
yeah. So after I finished playing, I said to myself, man, I can't do this anymore, But
Mm.
God is grateful, because after that we actually went up again, and when we went up again, a shootout happened right inside.
Oh wow.
So in the middle of the song, so we all dove like for cover, and the director was
Mm.
like, "Yo, everybody go." So I grabbed my keys. I had parked on Liberty Avenue, like a block down, right before you get to the train. Over the elevated
Oh,
train.
okay. Uh
Yeah,
huh.
so I had parked like near that area, and I went out and I got in my car, and I was like, "Man, this can't be it. Like this can't be my life." You know what I'm saying? And I'm doing this as a double life. You know what I mean? And I said, "No, I
Mm.
can't." And I got in the car, and I had to drive past the club again to get out because I had to go to Pennsylvania Avenue to
Right.
then
Right.
make that right and get on the Jackie Robinson to go
Mm.
back because I'm not even,
Right.
I'm not from Brooklyn. So
No.
as I
No.
go back, it turns out that the shoot I got went outside. So yeah. So I just went and I said, you know what, this is not. And I said on the way home, I said to God, look, man, I got to do this for you, but you gotta help me. I can't do it on my own. You gotta provide the musicians. You gotta provide everything. I'm gonna give everything, and I'm gonna play without any fear of the music that I'm playing. because that was one of the reasons why I didn't want to play in church, because I knew they weren't allowed merengue and stuff like that. So I was like, I'm not gonna even intend. But that day I was like, I'm gonna do it, and you're gonna back me up, and so forth. And that was in 2005, and we're in 2021, and God has this ministry from 2005 to now. I don't know the math of how many years that is, but that's how long, we've
Mm-hmm.
been doing this
Well, I met
through His
you.
grace.
What year did I meet you?
I don't know. It was the year, because I met you through Jose Morales when you
Right.
had UBG on the sign on the label. He
Mm-hmm.
was the one that called you and
And I
introduced me
remember
to you.
speaking to you. I was in a recording session,
Yes, you were
and
at Raves.
they hand me the phone, and they said, "Speak to this guy." And they didn't even say who you was, nothing. They just said, "Speak to this guy." So I'm like, "Who
Right,
is he?" Like, they just speak to him. So I got on the phone with you, and you say, "Hey, how you doing?" Da da da. I'm putting together or put together a band that plays Christian merengue, right?
right,
And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's interesting." Because I honestly I had never really seen
right,
a
right,
merengue band that was, Christian. There was some
right.
corridos that you could probably call merengue, but
Well,
it
le-
wasn't exactly merengue merengue. You know what I'm saying?
right.
It was
Well,
like that old style merengue, so to speak.
right.
Right.
It's very important that the audience that's listening understand the time lapse that we're talking about.
Hmm.
During that time, um, there was no salsa, no merengue. I have to say this because I have to give attribute and thanks to the people that came and trailblazed the way. I can't sit here in this interview and say, "Hey, this." No,
Hmm.
without giving to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. So
Right.
that being said, Galilea Sound was one of the first bands that started doing Latin music, organized Latin music. Prior to that, you had your regular corritos that you played at 100 miles an hour, and that went
For
that went
45
on
minutes.
that went on for 45, 50 minutes, and
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
knows,
Uh,
but then Galilea Sound was one of the first groups that really had organized, con Adan Sanchez, all of these guys. And then, after they opened up and trailblazed, but they were smart in the way they did it because they had Carmen Sanabria. So what
mhm.
Carmen Sanabria would do is Carmen Sanabria would sing her ballads or
Right.
boleros, and the church would be like, great. And then they'll sneak in a little salsita, and the church would take it.
Uh-huh.
So they did that for many years, but that opened the door then for Avivamiento Galilea. That opened the door then for one of their sons, Ruben, who as you know is Saris.
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
paved the way. They went out and they the salsa music before the merengue music. The salsa music opened up the doors for us, the merengue music. So I got to give props to that. If it wasn't for Galilea Sound, Saris,
Then you
and
have
what that
Richie
did,
Ray and Bobby Cruz too.
and then the biggest international, because that was
Right.
local here. I'm talking about in New York City,
Right.
Galilea Sound and Saris. And then after Saris, you had Queta Ruby, you guys did salsa, New Vision Brothers. So a lot of groups started coming out and they were doing salsa because it
Our
was
stuff was
accepted.
more fusion, but
Right,
yeah,
right, right.
everything
Well,
had
you
a
have
little hint of
right.
salsa and stuff like that.
But
But
internationally, Richie Rainbow We Crew were the ones that
yeah,
opened up,
yeah.
So that I had to explain that just to give props to that because of them,
Then behind them came David and Abraham.
David and
No
Abraham, and then
relation to you.
no, Tocayo, I call him Tocayo. So yeah, so they opened up for us the merengue to then become, so the Puerto Ricans with their salsa was really opened it up for us,
So
and
there's
then
a
we
little
came along.
there's a little difference in the merengue that I used to know from Corritos
Yes,
than the merengue that you do.
right, because the merengue from Corritos, the only way that I can explain it is this: you have salsa, right? A salsa band like Saris or Ruby and these people, and then you have songo that you play in church,
Hmm.
and the songo is like a salsa.
Right.
But songo will be considered a church salsa for corito. So that's the same thing. You have a merengue that's a merengue for the church that you play with drums, and it's a merengue and it's fast. But then you have the real merengue, which you have the instruments. You have songo, but then you have the real salsa, conga, bongo, timbales, and you
Right.
have,
Right. Hmm.
horns and all that. So
Right.
that's the difference. You have church and then you have organized band. And that's what I had wanted to do. I didn't want to do a merengue group with church music. I wanted to do a merengue group with what merengue really is. Just like Richie Rainbow We Crew did the salsa like the way that salsa is with, you know, with the percussion and all of
So
that.
when I first met you and I first saw your band, practically half the band was all your relatives because
Well, I had,
your brothers were all playing
yeah,
with you at the time, and it
my
seemed
brothers are
like a
playing.
family band, you know.
My brothers are playing percussion. You know, and like I said before, we skipped from when I was 18. Like I said, from the time I was 18 to the time I was almost 30, I was out in the street. A lot of stuff that I'm not going to disclose here happened. You know, I ended up paying a little visit up north, you know, and doing some stuff. So
You
when
had a
I
long extended fishing trip. I get it.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so when I had the opportunity to be an example to my brothers and stuff like that, I took that opportunity, and you know, that's why, you know, I brought them in the band. I wanted them. I knew they were musicians, and I knew they loved music, and I wanted them to be a part of playing for God, and I didn't want them playing out secular and stuff. But yeah, they were, you know, the conguero was my brother Danny. The
So
tamborero was
I'm gonna
Izzy.
share a video from
What year?
2008.
Oh, that's the early years.
Yeah, yeah. Give me a second to
We were
share
very
it.
raw.
Um, Even you look a little different there.
Well, I'm
Uh,
younger. I'm younger.
yeah,
2008.
yeah.
Yeah,
That was. So let me know when you see it.
I see it. I see it.
Okay, so here we go.
This is SwingDivino.
Let's go. Let's go.
Now somebody
You
listening
guys
to
can
this
get
is
up
a
if you
church
want.
event.
You don't follow us. You don't follow us. We came here to get down, right? Oye, Martín. Si no saques, oye. Adorar a Dios. Adorar a Dios. Adorar a Dios. Adorar a Dios. Emilio. Adorar a Dios. Adorar a Dios. Adorar a Dios. Oye, oye, oye. Adorar a Dios. Queramos todo el pueblo. Adorar a Dios. Él es el rey de reyes.
Look
Él
how
es el
big man behind you
Él
there.
es el rey de reyes. Es el
He's been
pueblo.
with you for a long
Vamos todo
time.
el pueblo. Adorar a Dios. Vamos todo el pueblo, señores, a adorar a Dios. Él es el rey de reyes. Él es el Señor. Él es el rey de reyes. El corrido con nosotros dice.
I'm gonna pause it here. Stop sharing it. I'm gonna play the whole song.
Yeah,
Um,
that was a theme song.
because that particular song, you kind of mixed the merengue style you had with an
Mhm.
old sort of a corito line, you know, adorar a Dios, da 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 da.
Mhm,
But for those that only speak English, you want to explain what that is because they're hearing Spanish, they may not know what you're saying. So I
You
want
should
you
have
to
put the
explain.
you should have put the video. You should have put the video that we did it in one of your events.
I
That
know
we
you
did it
sang
in
it both
English.
ways, but that's
Let's
okay.
but adorar a Dios is simply saying let's praise the Lord. And basically it wasn't a hard song to write. You know, it was
Uh-huh,
basically I started, you know, just thinking about everything he's done, and I said at the end of the day, you know, in the Bible it says, you know, everybody that breathes, you know, praise the Lord
praise
with
the Lord.
everything.
Right,
And,
right.
and I was like, so that's why that was an anthem song. Let's praise the Lord, which ended up being the anthem song when I in 2011 when I recorded the first production titled
Right.
Adorar a
Mm,
Dios.
mm,
You know,
mhm.
it had 8 songs, but that was the main song and the most popular.
Well, a lot of people would call you, if I remember, because I remember one time I was helping you with gigs and
Mhm.
stuff, and they would call and they would ask particularly for that song. Like,
Yeah,
is he gonna come and play Adorar a Dios? You know,
yeah.
because the back in the day of MySpace, I'm going way back.
Wow.
They someone saw you or recorded a video or something of you
Mhm.
guys playing that, and it became sort of
No,
a hook, like a hook for you guys, you know.
yeah, that became one of those. Every band has one of those must play songs.
Right, right,
You know, you guys have Maestro for me.
right. Or right, you love that
For
song, I know.
me. That ended up becoming the must play song, especially with the youth. You know, when I started, it's funny because when I started, it was all the youth was our biggest following. The youth, everywhere we went, the jóvenes were the ones. Now it's the adults now, and I guess I got older. I'm doing my stuff, but I'm doing it now with a
The
different
youth
music.
that you used to play for got older too.
Got older too. So,
But let me ask you this:
mhm.
have you experienced resistance from? Um, I'm not going to say any particular denomination or anything like that, but even from reverends and
Oh yeah,
ministerial pastors, as far because I know when me and my brother used to go play, there were certain places they only wanted us to play like old songs. They never wanted us to
right,
play,
right.
anything modern,
Well,
quote
when I
unquote.
fir-
You know.
when I first started, I had an experience one day that taught me a very big lesson, and I was invited. Some teenagers, some jóvenes, had seen me at a concert, and they seen the song "Adorar a Dios," and they heard some other songs that we used to do, "Soy Feliz" and all those songs, and they invited me to a youth convention. I'm not going to mention what denomination it was,
Mhm.
and they invited me to that youth convention. So they presented the band. We started playing. All the youth are getting up and they're enjoying themselves. And the pastor from the church in the middle of it just walked out, and I saw it with my eyes. And I remember that hit me. And one of the jóvenes said, "Don't worry about it. Keep doing what you're doing," and gave me strong words. But then I started learning, and I said, "You know what? This is a very strong. Like I was showing up at churches, Mo, with the band. I
Mhm.
think that what happened was that in the beginning, when they would invite me, they were expecting a church band, drums, piano, guitar, and they were expecting a church drum. And then here comes this guy, and he has trumpets, saxophone, a whole percussion section, two guys in the front doing steps, and like, wait a minute, So I
Yeah,
understand
it's
how it
a
could
it's a
have
little different than what they expected.
they were expecting.
Well,
So
i-
I
we you spoke about K1 or Kevin
mhm.
Brown, who was in the show before this one.
Shout out to Kev, my boy.
Shout out to Kev. I remember we got invited. We all got invited to your mother's church in Harlem,
Yeah, yes,
and
yes.
and and Kay told me, I don't want to sing with tracks. I want to bring my band. And I said, sure, you can bring your band. But had I known what was going to happen that
Yeah,
day,
that's
I
yeah.
would have thought about it a little
But that
differently.
but that right
But
there was an example of what was going on, And like I said, to answer your question, what I learned to do was whenever somebody would tell me, "Hey, can you come over to my church? Hey, can you do this?" The first thing I started telling them is go into YouTube, watch a video, and then
mhm,
get back to
mhm.
me.
the
Fifty
only
percent of the
the
time,
only reason why we're talking about UK again, sorry, is that he invited some. He's from Trinidad, so he invited some of his musicians. And some of his musicians, they have dreadlocks and whatnot,
yeah,
and very strict
yeah.
Spanish churches are not used to a musician looking like that.
Right. No,
So
there was
so
a protocol. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So
It
when
was
they came
it
in, it
was
was a little bit like what? It was
mhm.
unexpected. But after
First of
they
all,
started playing, though, everything
it was a different thing.
got
Well, first
squashed.
of all, you got to take a lot of things in account. You got to take the culture. Us
Hmm.
Latinos, we're very, Latino culture, we're very visual. When they saw these guys come in with dreadlocks and all that, they, immediately,
It went straight to
were
you.
they were like they went straight to me like, who did you bring home, and all this stuff. But I was trying to teach them. I remember that I even told you, I said, no, let them learn, that and open up their minds.
But
But
after they played, it was a totally different.
oh no, yeah, no, the concert was amazing.
Yeah.
But and that's what started happening. I would tell them go to YouTube. So what would happen is some pastors would be like, okay, they'll go to YouTube, and then they'll call me back and say, it's okay, because they saw on YouTube what it was, and they were like, oh, my church is not ready for that. So that's why in the beginning, the first 5-6 years was all youth events. I did so many conventions. I was doing conventions, youth concerts, urban concerts, anything that had to do
Mm-mm.
with the youth. That's what I was doing. Then I started transitioning to other stuff. But in the beginning, the youth were the backbone of that kept us going.
Right.
And that song "Adorar a Dios" was a must do song. It was an anthem song for that everybody really enjoyed to this day.
Now I know, and being a band leader, I know, you know, you change musicians, you try
Yeah.
different things.
Hmm.
Musicians even go and start their own band, they leave, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. My
Um,
my brothers did that. The ones you saw there,
yeah,
they
yeah,
have
yeah.
their own merengue band now, and they're doing their own thing, and to me is gratifying to me because it just shows that something must have stuck, and it
Yeah.
inspired them to
Yeah.
go and start their own.
Mhm.
People thought that I would be like, oh man, your brothers are doing, you're not upset. And I said, why would I?
Well, my
That's what
question, my question is more point to, because you have a lot of horns and you have a lot of instruments playing
right.
in Swing Divino. Is it ever hard to find musicians?
Yes, it is. It's hard, and in the beginning, I was what do you call when you bring in a musician? I forgot
Training?
what it was. No,
Training?
no, no, no. When you bring a musician, kind of like, and there was a name that we used to use for that. But a lot of times, I would go and I would get a musician who was a professional,
Oh, you
and
mean
that
a
would have,
gun, a gun for hire? That's what
yeah,
you
a gun,
a
yeah,
gun
no,
for
I would
hire.
have to get a gun for
Yeah.
hire.
Mhm.
There weren't a lot of musicians in the church that uh, uh,
Play those
uh,
instruments?
that played those instruments. Very few, because like I said before, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you learn, these are the instruments that you learn in church. You learn drums, you learn guitar, you learn bass, and you learn piano. And then if you learn any percussion, it was usually a conga, you know.
Or
Those are the
bongos?
instruments
Or
or
bongos?
bongos. But
Yeah.
usually if a church had all of those, it was considered a church that had a full thing. Most churches
Now
were
you're talking about a Spanish church.
Spanish
American
church. No, no,
church
no.
is
I'm talking
different.
about
Yeah.
no. I'm talking about
Yeah.
I grew up in the Spanish, so I'm talking obviously a Spanish church.
Right.
That was, if you had all that, then you had a full considered, or you were blessed. Most churches were drums, were three instrument churches: drums, a bass player, a piano player, and if you had a guitar player, that was good. So
Right.
you know, nobody was really training themselves in trumpet and sax. The ones that did weren't playing in church. They were playing out,
True.
with,
True.
with
True.
Hector Lavoe, with everybody. So yeah, so in the beginning, I did have to do some, guns for hire, and pay professional guys to come in and so forth. And then as the years went by, a lot of young guys started picking up instruments. A lot of church guys started picking up instruments and just learning and playing. So it became easier to recruit, and the recruiting happened by itself. A young guy would see the band. Of course, they were like, "I love the band. If you ever need me," and they'll leave me the numbers. And you're a director. You
Mm,
start
mm,
you start
mm.
collecting numbers.
Yeah.
I had a book with every I had a book with every instrument and number under each instrument. So I had for congas, I had six numbers for six congueros. You know,
Back in the
and
day
so forth.
before the computer craze, I had a notebook and I went to the a little kid store and I bought stickers of with the instruments, and I would put the number
Right.
next to a picture of a saxophone if it was a saxophone player. You know what I'm saying? Are you there? You hearing me? Are you
Yeah, I'm
having
here.
okay? So it's a little um hard to find musicians. And what about traveling? When you travel, do you travel and play with tracks? Do you travel with the band? How do you do your traveling?
Traveling was well. It depends where we went. If we had to play, let's say if we had to play in Brooklyn, most of my musicians were from the Bronx, were from the city, from the five boroughs, and everybody will meet at the church. Everybody will meet at the church wherever it was. That's just the way we did it. If it was out of state, we always had a place where we would meet, 181st Street. Everybody will meet there, and then we'll all get into cars and head out. I mean, that was probably the easiest thing to do.
Right, right.
Hmm.
But you have gone out because you've gone out with me a couple of times
Hmm.
to sing with tracks.
Right.
Only because it was probably difficult to bring the whole band with you. But
Well, like when we did,
do you find it easier for you to minister with tracks or with live musicians?
well, it's just like any other music. When you have a live band behind you, it's much better because you can control the length of the song. You can control, jack downs when the music is up, when it's down. I mean, you can do when you have a live band, you could be more creative. When you play a track, if the track is a 3-minute track, brother, when those 3 minutes are up, your song is up. You
Yeah,
can't,
you can't
the
be like
track finished,
rewind that.
you know, unless you're like K1 and you're Jamaican and you say rewind, rewind, pop, 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 rewind. and you
Well,
do that.
he's Trinidadian, but okay, same
No,
thing.
but he knows
Yeah,
what I'm saying.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when you have a live band, just like any other music, the salseros do it all the time. When they have a live band, they can jack down. And I remember, Gilberto Santa Rosa is very popular with doing that. He'll jack down and he'll soñar, and
But
the
you
song is
do you
longer.
you've come to play in my church a couple of times for different events, and you do something different. You get the people involved with the songs,
Right.
and you get them to come up front and dance, or move
Yeah.
around with the song. I remember one place we went to that you were saying the song Adorar a Dios, and then you were handing the mic to the person to sing with you,
Yeah.
Adorar a Dios, and
Yeah.
so forth. So you're very what's the word I'm looking for, very interactive with
Yeah.
the people listening.
I engage, yeah, because this is the thing with merengue music. Okay, so with salsa music, which is great, but salsa music is a smooth music. You know what I mean? Unless you're doing like a big, soneo. But most of the time, salsa music, you could literally sit there in a church and just, pa pa, and just be like, gozándote.
Mm, right.
But with merengue music, it's a little different because it's real. The beats are very engaging and all that. So it's hard for people to be in a church sitting down. And I noticed that like people were like undecided what they're gonna do. So I've always like just try to engage with the people and get in my bed, especially in your church. I remember one
In my
time we
church,
played
you changed the words to English so
it.
people could
Yeah,
understand what you were singing about, which is very
there's a
interesting. Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
video on YouTube. There's a video on YouTube. I went to play at your church when they did an event in the parking lot, and two people just started battling each other.
I
This this
remember.
this this African American guy
Uh-huh.
came and he started. We were doing Adorar a Dios, and he did his moves, and some lady felt like, you know what, I could do it better, and she came and she started. And before you know it, we had a
That was in the health fair we were doing on the whole block was closed off. We were doing a health fair for the
in the
neighborhood,
parking lot. Yeah,
and we had the
and
parking lot set up with tables and whatnot, and you
yeah, and
came you
before you
came to
know it,
help us out, and that was a wonderful day too.
and
Um,
before you know it, you had a full blown battle going on between these two guys, and but it's great to engage. So what I've done throughout the years, I've made it like my niche, and now everybody expects that. When I go to weddings, when I go to gigs, everybody. I just did a gig in Long Island 2 weeks ago,
mm,
and the videos up on YouTube and all that, and they were expecting it. They were telling me, we ready to go up, we ready to do this." So yeah, we getting engaged with the people just makes it better, and it's much easier now. I do have to point out, it's easier to do that now in these times that people are more open minded. Back
then
when I
back in
first
the day,
started,
yeah, yeah,
you couldn't engage anybody. You know what I'm saying? If I
yeah,
called anybody to come up, oh, there was gonna be trouble. So yeah, the
right,
times
right.
have a lot to do with it,
hmm
and thank God
I'm
for
gonna, I'm
that.
gonna I'm gonna play another clip um from YouTube.
Hopefully a more recent one.
Well, I don't know how recent it is. Give me 1 second here. Where is this?
Okay, this is in Queens, and this was last year in
Okay.
2020 during the pandemic when I thought I
Yeah, I
probably
noticed
wouldn't.
because the bass player has a mask on. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so
The only one with a mask on.
no, the this guy right here has a mask on.
Right. No,
The guy.
we were making fun of him. That's why. But during the pandemic, when I thought we were I was like, I'm gonna have to wait a year to everything. God blessed us to being able to do a wedding, and this was that day back
All
in
right, so I'm
August.
I'm gonna play a little bit of this. All right, here we go. Now that's pretty fast, bro.
Yeah.
I see your band like you'll have fun, with each other, which is cool.
Yeah, I engaged with the band with all of
Now I'm gonna stop this. Does does anybody ever come up and tell you, I want merengue, but I want that old style merengue?
No, I haven't gotten that, and only because they know the merengue style that I do already. I did have a couple of songs that had the old style merengue in it too. So I guess because they know that, like I have a son, Llegó a mi vida, which is old school. We call it old school merengue.
Right.
And so I have Llegó a mi vida, which is old school. I have like 2 or 3 songs that we do old school. So I think they know that and they don't ask for it. But I do get people asking for do I do this song or do I do that song? They hear a song and they think that I do it and so forth. But other than that, pretty much everybody knows. Back then in 2008, like when you put the video 2008, I was doing very urban merengue, so it was very hardcore. During that time in the secular world, the urban merengue was just starting, so that's why I did it too, because it was just starting. So it was very popular, which is why it caught a lot of fire even in the church, because it was urban merengue. It was what was new. Now as I got older, now I'm in my 50. It's like I do now merengue,
Hey,
and
you're a young
it's just solid.
whippersnapper. You're a young
And
cat, man.
but it's just now it's more solid, because now I'm not doing that young. I'm doing a merengue that's more for my age appropriate. And I always said, I can't do that what I was doing in 2008 anymore, because 2008 was like yeah, come on, yeah, it was like that. Now, and I said to myself, look at how I'm going to look at my age doing that. So now I have to be more, So that changes that changes. That always happens with the time when you look at bands that start off, they have a certain style.
You also play yourself,
Mhm.
because I only know that because you put up some videos of you playing with the worship team, of
Yeah, at
the
my church, I play with
church,
the worship team in the
which is an
church.
American church, right?
Hmm.
Which some people would be like, what? He goes to an American church? Like they wouldn't expect it. You know what I'm saying? Like that kind
Yeah,
of throws them off. But
yeah. No, I was at my home church, but when you become parents and you have kids, it's not about you anymore. And for many
mm,
years, my kids, I kept them going to a Spanish church, because I was like, this is where I want to be at, because this is where I'm at. This is my home church. But then I had to start thinking about them and about, what are they going to learn? It was hard for them to understand the Spanish, because they only spoke most fluently English. So,
mm.
that's when me and my wife, we made the decision of, what, we need to go to church. She made the decision first. She went first. I told her, you go on first. At that time I was music director in my church, in my home
Mm.
church. And I was like, I can't leave the music director, and leave the church hanging. I
Right,
just
right,
felt
right.
obligated. So I told her, you go first and let me know how it is. If it's okay, then, maybe I'll transfer. And she went with, and for a year I was going to my home church and she was going to the American church that was closer to home. But the
Now,
kids were benefiting
so
from
I
it.
remember you calling me up one day and telling me, Moses, I'm like, what? And you said, yo, the American church is different, bro. And I was like, what do you mean it's different? He's like, well, they start on time, they end on time. You
well,
gave me like a whole list of things that was
well, what
different.
happened? Well, what happened was, like, again, I was coming from a my home church, who I
And I'm
love to
not
death.
downing the Spanish church neither. I
No,
grew up
no,
in a
no,
Spanish
no, no.
church
I'm
too.
saying my,
But
my
it's
home
just
church,
different. It's just
my
the
home
way it's
church.
organized is different. Yeah.
Yeah, my home church, El Encuentro con Dios. Shout out to the Meeting with God, Encuentro con Dios, on 147th and Broadway. Pastors Henry and Milagro Mercado. That is my home church. Um, but I remember the first day that I went to the American church, after I had resigned from my position at the church, and I told the pastor, I'm going to be going, because I need to be with my family. You know, it's not good for my wife to be there and with the kids, and then me over
Mm.
here.
Right, right,
And
right.
so forth. And he understood, and he said, hey, go in blessing, and so forth. So that Sunday was the first Sunday I was going to the church, and the service started at 11. Okay, so we got there at 11 o'clock sharp, and the service started at 11. And all I remember is that at 12:15, the pastor was like, let's pray. Everybody go home, have a blessed week. And I was like, wait, what? I was still waiting for a couple of more songs. I was waiting for another testimony. I was waiting. I said, wait. And my wife was like, that's it. I said, oh, okay. I said, so I had to call you, because you at that time, I knew you was going to an American church. You've been going to an American church longer than me. So I had to
Mm.
call you. I'm like, let me call boy and see what's going on.
It,
But
it, it
it
is a
was it
it
was
is a little bit
interesting.
of learning curve and a little bit of culture shock too.
Oh, it was a culture shock for me. I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
uh, I mean, it was just, you know, and I remember it was during the summer, and I remember telling my wife like, "Oh, this is great because now we could go out." You know,
Mhm.
where you know, when I was musical director, you know,
You were
I was
there
at the
till the
church that
sun went down. Yeah.
I was there. You know,
Yeah.
we had two services and so forth, and you know, so I had to be in both services. So I wasn't done till like 5 o'clock, and by the time I got home, and you know, I live in North Yonkers. By the time I got home, I was tired. It was 7 o'clock. And, you know, I'm dead. But you know, like I said, you grow up in that, and I did it, and it didn't bother me
So
until I
all
started
this
thinking about
time,
everybody
you've
else.
recorded the one album and a few singles. Do I have that right?
Yes, what I've done is I've done an album that I did in 2011, and then I've done two singles. And what I'm
Mm.
doing is I'm doing a couple of singles because I'm going to be coming out probably next year with my, you know, my second production
Right, right,
it's
right.
due. My first one was in 2011. We in 2021, so it's due.
Uh,
You know, but those
yeah,
two,
yeah.
but the two singles that I have now, one is an English song called "By My Side," and the other one you're gonna like is "Todopoderoso" by from. I took a little piece of Hector Lavoe coro and put it
Uh-huh.
in. You know, for us, that's gonna be. I'm. There's gonna be another theme song, anthem song. Once it comes out, it's already out as a single. So
So you did send me a couple of clips here.
yeah, I think I sent
Um,
you a little bit of the English song called "By My Side,"
oh, hold on a
and
sec. Let me
because you're
share
always
that.
telling me do some English songs. So when you come to my church, you always tell me. So I had to do a
Well,
whole English song.
what am I gonna say? You know, you come to a church that's
Hmm.
primarily the only people speaking Spanish is like 9 families, and the
And
church is
that's
200,
it.
250 people. So, you know, some people understood you, but not the whole church. You know,
Right.
so I'm gonna
No,
play.
but that motivated me to do an English song anyway. So that's the English song.
All right, so let me go ahead and I'm gonna play this track here. Hold on 1 second. And I want to make sure they could hear it, so I'm gonna share the actual media player playing the song. Do you see it?
Yep.
Okay, here we go.
And every time I close my eyes, I feel your presence by my side. Then I know that you're with me.
And this is out, right?
And when I feel like I can't go on, you lift me up into your arms. And I feel your love for me. And when I feel like I can't go on, you lift me up into your arms, and I feel your love for me. Whoa. And when I feel like I can't go on.
Now that one is already out. That's a single that's already.
Yeah. The single's
Oh,
already out.
so so
People can
people
go
can go to
to
iTunes and everything, and
iTunes, CD Baby,
Spotify, whatever.
Spotify. They type in "By My Side," SwingDivino by my. The name of the song is "By My Side,"
Okay.
and I've gotten a lot of people. I was really surprised. I was like, I'm doing it in English, so when I go to certain church, but I've gotten a lot of people that have. I had a guy call me up and said, "Listen, man, I just." You know, I had a family member of mine who passed away, and this song like just spoke to me, and I said, "Oh, I didn't do it for the purpose of death, but you
You'd
know,
be you'd be surprised how
but the
things happen
words,
like that.
you know, by my side, and the words that, you know, when I feel you by my side, and when I feel like I can't go on, you always lift me up. Those words, you know, touch the individual. So, but that's available. That song is on CD Baby, iTunes, Spotify, all over.
Got you. Um, you have another one here, the Todopoderoso one,
This is
right?
for all my Latinos. Yeah, man, I'm really psyched about this one
All right, hold
because
on.
this is such an easy song to learn because every Spanish, Puerto Rican, Dominican person knows this song. So
All right, here we go. Tell me when you see it.
I see it.
Todopoderoso es el Señor. Todopoderoso es el Señor. Ae. Todopoderoso es el Señor. Todopoderoso es el Señor. Ay, te puede a ti salvar, amigo. Es el Señor. También te puede sanar. Es el Señor. Te puede liberar, mi hermano. Es el Señor. Si te sientes solo, te ayudará. Es el Señor. Si te sientes enfermo, te sanará. Es el Señor. Aunque tengas problemas, te ayudará. Es el Señor. Siempre va contigo en las buenas y en las malas. Es el Señor. Ae. Todopoderoso, ponle mambo, ponle mambo. Es el Señor. Es el Señor. Es el Señor. Es el Señor.
Now, is that one out also?
Yep, that one is out, and that's also one that I'm trying to do as an anthem song because I already
Right.
picture the people just saying "Es el Señor, es el Señor." So I try to do songs that people can. They don't have to remember all the words that I do, but the chorus part they can at least do.
For those that are watching us and they only speak English, you may want to translate what that means. Todopoderoso es el Señor. And
Oh, this is it means all powerful. God is all powerful. That's basically what it means. And just to clarify, I did not take Todopoderoso from Hector Lavoe and did a remix of it. That's not what I did. That song is that song. What I did was I took the chorus part that has the message that I like, which is Todopoderoso, which means all powerful is our God. I took that message and made it into an anthem where the crowd is just repeating, he's all
Gotcha.
powerful. He's
So
all powerful.
I always ask everyone that's on this show two questions. One, if you could meet yourself, let's say when you was young, what would you tell yourself now with the knowledge you have now? What would you tell yourself, or what advice would you give yourself? If let's
I
say
would
you
say
meet yourself at 18, whatever age you want
I
to,
would say
pick.
I would say throw the gun in the trash can that's right there. Don't walk away with it. Uh, I would I would
Not good advice. But-
no
no, but what would you
no
actually say?
no. What I would say to myself is, knowing what I know now, it will probably be to just follow what you feel here, you know, which is I would feel it when I was young, but I didn't know where to start, where to go. But I knew there was something that I wanted to do for him. So I would tell myself, look, just do it. Don't wait till you're 30 to start doing it. Like I think about when I started, and I imagine if I would have started at, 20,
Mm-mm.
where probably things will be. But then I said to myself, and everything happens according to God's will. And it was his will that I go through whatever the things I went through to then be here now and so forth in the time frame that he wants. But that's basically what I would tell myself is just go out there and do it.
And
Do
then
what
the
your heart is
next
telling you.
question is if you meet Christian musicians, singers, whatever, that are young, that are coming up, what message would you want to give them about your music? What's Swing Divino messages, and what advice would you give them as a up and coming musician or singer or worshiper or whatever?
Right. Well, the advice that I will give him is my life experience. I would tell him I could have easily the first gig or the second gig that I had that I saw that a pastor got upset, I could have given up. And I could have said, I'm not doing this. Are you kidding me? I'm not going to be going to churches and having whatever. But I had that drive where I was like, no, I'm gonna do this. This is what I feel in my heart. This is what God has put in my hands, and I'm gonna do it. Even if pastors where you hold pastors at a high level, even if they didn't agree with it, if they, and so forth, and just continue and go through it. Once you go through it, you're gonna see the blessings. And now, before when I started, I had pastors that I was concerned about, and now I have pastors that work hand in hand with me.
Yeah, I
I
know
mean,
you
hand in hand.
you also have, besides the Swing Divino ministry, you also have your label, which also
Right.
helps promote. And same thing I do. We always work
Yeah.
together, which a lot of people still are surprised that we both work together,
Yeah.
but that's okay. I just let it go to the wayside. We got
Yeah.
more
No,
important things to do. Kingdom
but
business is kingdom
I
business, you
started,
know.
you know, I interned, you know, at your label, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity that God, you know, because it was God opportunity that God put, and He touched you, and to allow me to, you know, to be a part of you guys, even from an internship level. But I learned so much, and not only did I learn so much, but it was also, it opened up that drive for me to want to, you know, to do what I'm doing now. I mean, you know, Vaz has done both Spanish and English, but you guys at that time were more generated to the, you know, to the American, you
Hmm.
know, and,
Hmm.
and so it just drove me. I was like, man, we could have this for the Spanish side. It would be
Right.
great. So that was one of the motivations, and just seeing what Vaz had done, you know, all those years, and just, you know, like I said, you know, just seeing all that, and then being able to work. There were things that you would put me and a fellow
Eric
uh,
Perez.
Eric Perez,
Shout out to you,
who
bro.
yeah, shout out to Eric, my boy, who we, you know, we were both interns, you know, we were, and you guys, the Vaz,
What I remember
will
the
make
day
us work together.
I remember that when I put you to both work together, even you and him both came to me, which was weird. You both came to me and said, "We're total opposites. Why are you making us
Yeah,
work together?" I said,
yeah,
"Because you have to in this business, you have to learn with people that are not exactly like
yeah,
you. So how are you gonna learn if you don't actually do it?" So there you
yeah,
go. But
yeah,
you
and we
learned,
met, we
you
met
got along, and it was great.
and we did a very, you know, we did a coffee house that me and him put together. You guys let us, I remember you guys sat
Do
back,
everything. We just
do
you
everything, you
do it,
guys
we'll
just
back you.
observe,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. I remember.
And that was good. We were able to sit down and put our differences. I mean, our differences were negative differences. Just he
No,
had
you
a
have
style, I had a style, and
two different styles of doing
yeah.
stuff. Yeah, yeah.
But it taught both of us a lesson, like you said, to work together. And after that, we actually became very good friends, and so forth. So I did, you know, my initial start as far as having a label and all of that came through Vaz, as in, you know, and I have always given the credit where credit is due, and that's where I first started there, and then that motivated me and created that, to do that, and then you know, I went with the blessing of Vaz
Of
Record.
course, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you know, we always did
Well,
everything.
we always try to, which some
Hmm.
people, like I said, s- still like in puzzlement. How could
Hmm.
two labels work together? And I said, but we're all working for Christ, so
Right.
why do we have to compete? There's no
No, and
competition.
after
You know what I'm
that,
saying? It's like,
Jesus, after that, bro, I mean, we've done so many events, bro, collaborating. We've had Vaz and Social Productions together, bringing so many events together to the city of New York.
oh
I
yeah,
mean, you know, we did. You guys used to have the Vaz praise. I mean, so many things, and we used to do 3 concerts a year. You guys used to do 3 concerts a year. We used
and
to
we backed
help
each other up.
help each other up.
Which was yeah.
I did
Mhm.
I did an urban. I remember I did an urban concert in New York City in the Bronx, and Vaz came and supported downstairs with. We had the booths for all the rappers and all
Yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and you know, I mean, and
We
we've
traveled
always worked
together too.
together.
We've been to Chicago, Florida, different places, Pennsylvania,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and those were nice events, you know.
Yeah, we did
Uh,
Florida, where we went to Florida. We played Friday night, we played Saturday night, and we played Sunday. And Friday and Saturday night, we played at the same church because we were bringing kind of like a concert to those churches. So
mm-hmm.
I sang, K1 sang, and New Vision sang. So all three of us sang at
K1 is Kevin for those who don't.
Kevin.
Kevin Brown.
So Pastor
Go ahead. Pastor
Pastor
Kevin Brown.
Pastor Kevin Brown. So we had we went to Fuego Church in
Oh
Kissimmee
yeah,
on that
Fuego Church.
Friday,
Yeah.
and we gave them a dose of us three. They got,
What's the name of the pastor there?
oh,
Um,
that's my friend Obi. No, Obi was in Kissimmee. Obi was Kissimmee. No, he was Obi.
it was
That was his
Obi,
name.
right? Yeah.
He's in
My
Tampa
shout
Bay
out to
now.
him because he was very nice guy, very
Yeah,
nice
but we bought
person.
them a dose of 3 different styles because you and your brother came up and you guys did your fusion, Latin fusion, and salsita and all that. Pastor Kevin came and he brought his reggae and and all that. And then I came and brought merengue. So those youth were having such a great time. Then Saturday,
but even he said that there's a difference between the music like in Florida than in New York.
Oh yeah,
We
but
brought New York to Florida,
we
basically.
brought New York to Florida, and then
And we have
Saturday
people
we
in
played
California say the same thing. They have their
Yeah.
own styles over there, So
Yeah, and Saturday we played at another church together again. But then Sunday we all split up
we
because
all
you
had
got
engagements other
yeah.
places. Yeah,
I had two churches I had to go to in one was in Kissimmee in Orlando, and I forgot where the other one was. And
I think
actually,
wasn't it? I think
Obi,
it was in Ocala.
yeah,
Was it Ocala?
Obi's dad also pastored a church in by Orlando somewhere, and we had to go there. But we all went our separate ways, but to minister in different churches. So that was
Yeah.
pretty cool. And we did. So that was Florida. We did Chicago, where we had a ball as well. We had Clave Legacy.
Herman's
We had
band out
Clave's.
there.
We
Clave
had
Legacy.
Herman's band. We had Salsa K1 with his reggae and stuff, and we played that live.
Yep.
I was on the drums, and we
remember that.
we played that song, and then we played a worship song that he did, and I don't know how he did it, but he did it in reggae, and we just followed him. We didn't even rehearse. It was
It was great.
Rodriguez on the piano.
Those type of trips, people bond together. You bond as brothers. And we I thank God for them. But we're coming to the end of our interview. As quick as that was, right? You thought it was going to be a long thing, but it ends really fast. I want to thank you again for being on the Victorious Radio Show. If anyone needs to contact El SwingDivino, you have you're gonna text me all the pertinent information, email, phone number, etc. I'll post it with this video as well on Facebook and on YouTube. So
and
if anybody wants to call you,
And I also have a YouTube channel. If whoever wants to subscribe to that, they can go to SwingDivino on YouTube, subscribe to that. We're just trying to stay ahead with the modern times. I remember back then.
Even now, Facebook is becoming passe now. Nobody's
I remember back then.
That's for the old people, the young people.
Where we had MySpace and that was it. But now we have so many Instagram and Twitter and all that. So and I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook. So anybody can reach out. I'll be sending you the number and email and so forth. And we are at the disposal of the church, of the people.
And now that COVID's going down and they're actually opening up to live events, if you want to do a live event outside and you need a merengue band, there's the man right there. You can get a hold of him.
That throughout the years that has been a specialty. I hardly ever do, and I don't mean to sound, I hardly ever do church events like campañas and stuff like that. When I first started, I used to get invited to campañas de jóvenes. Campañas are youth services and stuff like that. Now I hardly ever do that. Most of my gigs are outreaches, which is the niche. This is what our niche is out there in the world. Outreaches, and then Sweet 16s, weddings, and all that. But more importantly, outreaches are our strong point.
Especially, on the street, the rhythm. Le trae la gente, brings people, when they hear
No, that's what I'm saying. That's our forte. And a lot of I run into all the salsa bands that we mentioned today. Unido para Adorar, Luis Mercado. I got Sounds of Praise for Adam Lebron, Salsa Praise, Adam Lebron, Son de la Verdad with my boys from Long Island and so forth. Shout out to one of my singers, Ray. He's listening in. And he sings also with Son La Verdad. So, a lot of the salseros are because it's opening up now, they're getting a lot of shine now, and we're jumping on that too, and God is blessing us on that.
Well, I want to thank you once again.
Yep.
So say goodbye to the people. We will post all the information so that you can get a hold of Abraham Sosa. Thank you, my brother.
There you go.
Take
care, my brother. Have a good one, and
Bye.
thank you for having us. Bye-bye.
God bless.